Hi, this video is shortage of mechanics, shortage of cars. A few months back, I talked about a shortage of vehicles. I was having a really hard time finding a vehicle. There weren't that many options. After my accident, I had to look for another vehicle, and there just weren't that many options. There really weren't. There were a few, but a lot of them were out of my price range, considering that I wanted to pay cash for what I had, for what I was purchasing. Anyway, didn't have a lot of options, and I ended up purchasing something that I like. I love the car, but it wasn't my first choice. I would have purchased, I was hoping for maybe a Toyota, or Camry possibly, but I didn't find that. Anyway, well, not only is there a shortage of cars, there seems to be a shortage of mechanics and a shortage of people to work on them as well, at least maybe in certain areas. In this particular area that I'm in, there seems to be, I'm getting that, it's like COVID killed everything. Anyway, so today I take my car in to the quick lane at Ford to get my work done, the stuff I talked about, all the coolant flush and the transmission flush, and they're going to drop the pan and clean the filter and check the transmission lines and do a few other things, alignment, do a few other things. Anyway, and they were very, very nice. Everything was pretty cool, but I noticed a general consensus, at least at the places I've been, is they don't like to work on older cars. I went over to the service department because I wanted to find out about the other Ford I have it was in the shop for 8 months last year, and the one I'm in now, and they couldn't seem to figure out what was wrong with it. So I went over to the service department to find out if they would replace the battery cable. Just a simple fix, a battery cable, because my ex-husband said it is split, it does need to be replaced. So I figured, and he's not getting around to it because he's not been feeling well, and he's having some problems, dental issues, problem with his tooth. I don't want to say earache, toothache every single day. So, he's not been feeling well. He's been sick. So I thought, okay, I'll just take it to Ford, or take it somewhere, let them do it. The general consensus that I've found already is that the dealership absolutely won't do it. They're like, anything over 10 years old, they're like, the parts are obsolete. You can't even get parts for a Ford that's over 10 years old. So that's number one issue. And then some of the other places, and I have called around to other places for, to look at not only this car, but the other car, the one that has a dead cylinder on it, just to see what I can do, see if it's possible to fix the engine. Personally, I think it's just an engine issue, maybe a valve issue, but I don't know for sure. And there's not very many mechanics in this area that will work on, that does major engine work. So that's number one. The one guy that I used to take it to, his wife is just, it's gotten to a point where I can't even take my cars in there because she just complains so loudly, about you need to buy something else, go bury those cars in a dig a big, get a backhoe and dig a big hole and bury them in it, and it's just a very negative situation. I really don't like it. And basically, I took my truck in there, and he said, wasn't worth working on, wasn't worth fixing, take it to the scrapyard. And he basically, she told me the same thing about the cars. You need to just take them all take everything you own to the scrapyard and get whatever you can get out of them, $300, $400, and just use it for down payment on something else, which I can't afford to do. And I'm not taking the car I just purchased and taking it to the scrapyard. That's ridiculous. And the one I'm in now only has it's reading 121,000, but it actually has about 131,000. When they replaced the cluster in it, it did not go to the correct mileage. And I don't know what the exact mileage is, but I know that it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 130,000, something like that. Maybe a little bit less, it may be 128, maybe 130, but it's somewhere in that neighborhood. So I just call it 131 because I really don't know what the exact mileage is. But still, 130,000 is not that much for a car. So the negative situation at the other mechanic is not one that I'm willing to go back to, because first off, I just get the impression he's not going to work on my cars. He wouldn't work on my truck. He just told me to take it to the scrapyard. He's not going to work on the car. My ex-husband keeps telling me to take it back, take it back to him, but that's ridiculous. I'm not taking it back to him. His wife is just, she's just a witch, really. She's not nice at all about it. And she's very negative, just not really, not the kind, they won't, basically, hey, I feel like, when they tell you to take your cars to the scrapyard, that's basically saying, hey, I don't want to work on them. Take them to the scrapyard, get rid of them, do whatever you want, but I don't want to work on them. So, that's just short of flat out saying, I don't want to work on your cars. So, anyway, I called up a couple other places, and a couple of the other places are, like, really, really busy. They're, like, basically, saying, hey, we're too covered up. I know one place completely shut down. I used to take my car there to the collision shop, but he also did brake work and wheel bearings and suspension work as well. And he shut down, and he said that all the work was going over to another shop. That shop is totally covered up and can't take anyone new. Called a couple other places, and they're all busy. It's crazy. Not only are the shops covered up and can't really take anyone new, I've noticed that probably about 5 car lots on this one road. I'm about 5 miles from the interstate, and there are about 5 car lots, maybe more, and they've all shut down. There's like 5 car lots just on this one road in a 5-mile radius, in a 5-mile straight line, that all just went belly up and went out of business. And I'm like, that doesn't really bode well. Anyway, so obviously I rather than go out and buy another car, because right now I feel like I need to try to put the car back together that I have, as opposed to buying, as opposed to just, it's got 130,000 on it, as opposed to sending a car with 130,000 to the scrapyard and calling it a day and trying to find something else, because quite honestly, I really can't afford to take $5,000 or $6,000 and put it into another vehicle. Not if I can help it. I could make do with one. I probably could. The area that I'm in, I definitely live close enough to be able to walk to the grocery store. But if something else comes up, I've got to be relying on taxis or Uber or whatever. And one Uber here and there is not going to be bad, but start having to rely on Uber a lot, and that's really going to add up and going to cost a lot of money having to rely on Uber or taxis, and so that's definitely an issue. I just don't really have, the $5,000 or $6,000 or more that I would have to shell out for another vehicle, which is going to be used, which is going to be older, and it's going to have probably issues too. When they get a little age on them, they all have to have things done. They have to have maintenance. They have to have repairs. It's just a fact of life. They're machines and they break down, some more than others. My understanding, Toyota and Honda last better, but still, if you get one with a lot of miles, and the only Hondas and Toyotas I can find have like 200,000 miles, so I'm pretty sure that they're going to have things done. But anyway, rather than the $5,000 or $6,000 or $7,000 or whatever I'd have to spend to buy another car, and believe me, the baseline price for a car in this area is about $9,000 or $10,000. So finding something cheaper than that's just like a hit or miss. If I could find something for $5,000 even, or $6,000, that $5,000 or $6,000 is money I really need to spend on the house. The house needs about $15,000 worth of work. It needs siding. There is a spot on the side of the house that the rental company that had the rental property management company that had my house didn't do their job. They didn't clean the gutters. It led to water leakage, which led to water leaking down on the side of the wall, which led to some rot on the side of the wall. That needs to be fixed. It rotted some of the siding. And now the whole siding needs to, it's just best to replace the whole siding. The carport, another issue. The carport is another issue that the property management company did not deal with. They told me that it just needed some boards replaced. They replaced the boards. the maintenance man or whoever did the work did very shoddy work. He simply took plywood and covered over areas that were rotted to make it look cosmetically okay, instead of telling me what really instead of doing the job, doing what needed to be done, or telling me what needed to be done so I could hire someone to do the job. Now the carport is in bad shape. It needs to be fixed, or my ex-husband thinks that it should just be torn down and buy one of those little aluminum carport things. Of course, that's money. That's of course, it's all money. I got to either replace it, tear it down, do something. Got to make sure, but it's attached to the house, so it has to be solid there. So there's a lot going on. I have the total amount for the house is around, to fix it, is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $15,000, and there's some more minor stuff on the interior that needs to be done as well, but definitely $15,000, and $5,000, dumping $5,000 toward another car is not something that I can, 5, 6, 7 toward another car is not something I can afford. Not when I might be able to dump only, a few hundred into this car. I mean, I told my ex-husband, I said, I need to get this car to be a viable option. It has to be viable. It has to be where I can take it out, be able to drive it for a little ways. I don't plan on driving it far, but at least drive it a ways, drive it an hour away, half an hour away, whatever the case may be. Leave it running for an hour, leave it running for a few hours, drive it an hour, maybe even 2, but no more, whatever. And it be a viable option, and it run okay, it run fine, not give me any issues, not break down on the side of the road, not stall out, not die when it gets, when the engine gets a little hot. The engine doesn't overheat, but there was an issue with it last year where when it got, the theft light would come on, and if the car was sitting in a hot parking lot for a few minutes or a little while, when you came back out, the car would only run for about 10 minutes, and then it would just stall out. And I could start it right back up, but it would run a while. Anyway, it was in the dealership for 8 months. It was in 2 different places, 2 different shops, but it was in the dealership alone for about 8 months. They said they couldn't figure it out. At the end, they just hand me my $900 bill for all the stuff they did and say, here's your $900 bill. We're sorry, we can't fix it. They replaced the cluster, which I know was bad because I couldn't see the mileage on it. That was burned out. So I know the cluster was bad. They replaced that. They replaced the crank sensor. They replaced the PCM, which turns out the PCM wasn't bad, and the PCM had been replaced before, so it was still under warranty. Then I got the car back. It wouldn't even start. Then my ex-husband, we got it home. I had to get it towed home. He finally took the battery out, took it to Advance Auto, got someone to charge it up a little bit. Finally got the car started. In fact, just a couple days ago on the 4th of July, I went out to come out here to start the car. The battery was dead again. Battery doesn't last very long. There is some kind of a drain coming from somewhere. The next door neighbor says there's some kind of a short in it. I don't know. It's been this way ever since I owned the car, and I've owned a car for like 13 years. But as long as the car is driven every day, or driven at least, a few times a week, a couple times a week, once a week, it's fine. Especially on a good battery. Now, I just replaced the battery about a year ago, but the fact that it sat for 8 months, I agree with the neighbor, that could be. It could be that it simply is not a very strong battery now. It could be just really weak, because it's been, like set for 8 months without being really run. It was idled, and that's something else. I want to get the car going. I need to be able to drive it. I need to be able to see if it dies or what's going to happen. Anyway, the guy in the Ford department, in the service department, was not very nice at all, and I really don't want to take my car back to Ford, but I really didn't know where else to take it to get any service done. I mean, I'm at a loss as to where I can take it. I'm at a loss as to where to take it, so I just decided Ford. I mean, because I figured, okay, Quick Lane is fine to do the maintenance and stuff on it. So while I was there, I thought, okay, I'm going to go over to the service department and see what they have to say about replacing the battery cable. Well, it turns out that, they poo-pooed me out. They really didn't want to be fooled with me. So Anyway, that's where I come up. I mean, there is a shortage of cars, a shortage of mechanics. Anyways, I see that my phone is starting to overheat, and I'm going to have to get off of here, probably go in the house, let it cool down a minute. I'm letting the car run, so to let it idle for just a little while to keep the battery from going dead. So I will be back in just a bit. Well, I had to come in the house. My phone was overheating, so I come back in, put the phone in the freezer for a little while. I've been having to do that. On the other car, I stick it in the AC vents, but this particular car that I was in, the one that I've talked about in the shop for 8 months, anyway, it didn't do very well. I can't stick the phone in the vents like I can my other car. And last year I had some AC issues, and I didn't even let it run that long. I just said, nah, screw it. The phone was overheating, and as soon as it overheated, I had to end my last video and come in, so I just stuck it in the freezer, because when I'm here, I do that. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this video up. We had a busy day today. We went to one of our favorite restaurants. They were closed. We went to one of our other favorite breakfast places. They too were closed. So we then decided to go to IHOP. My meal was good. I got something called Split Decision Breakfast, which has French toast and pancakes, eggs. The bacon wasn't that great. I don't really like meat that much. The sausage I ate a little bit of. Anyway, got myself an Arnold Palmer for breakfast. That was pretty good. My ex-husband Jeff hoofed down the to-go one I took with me. But the biscuits and gravy, he got biscuits and gravy, which I would never ever eat. I can't stand gravy. Biscuits are okay, but gravy, oh my God, I would never eat that. But anyway, he's had it before at one of the other restaurants. He said he really liked it, but he said it was awful. He asked for some pancakes. He ate a little bit of those, but couldn't eat a lot. I guess because his tooth is probably bothering him. Anyway, so we brought it back home, and we usually put out the scraps for the next door neighbor's dog. I'm not sure she likes it, but I don't know. She hasn't said anything, or she may not know it. I don't know. So anyway, that's what we do, and sometimes what I call the resident squirrel comes around and eats the scraps too. At nighttime, there's a possum that comes around. There's I think a baby possum here. Anyway, I'm sure there's little critters. Now the next door neighbor and the dog, of course, comes and eats. I don't think there are any cats around here though, because our neighbor has like 6 big dogs. Anyway, did that. Went to Target. My ex-husband wanted to look at Consumer Cellular for a phone. He ultimately didn't get a phone. Anyway, I picked up some hangers, which I needed. We looked at some blenders. The Ninja's the one I really want. I've had a couple Ninjas in the past, and I really liked them. So anyway, Target, I didn't really see what I wanted, and he suggested Walmart, so we went to Walmart, picked up a few things at Walmart. I ended up ultimately getting the Ninja Professional 1000 watt. Haven't used it yet. He has an Oasterizer, and I looked at Oster in Walmart, and I just said, I'm not going to get another Oster. The Oster that my ex-husband has is very old, though. But anyway, I really like the blades of the Ninja. It's, instead of just blades down at the bottom, it has a whole little thing with like 3 blades in it. So anyway, so I'm hoping that's going to be a lot better. I know the 2 Ninjas I had before they weren't like that, but they were, they were kind of more like a 1 serving Ninja, but they were really, really good. They worked really, really well. But it was one of those Ninjas with the cup that went upside down. So anyway, I don't know. But anyway, got that. Left Walmart. And then we stopped. We came back home for just a little while. I had to go to the glass place, an eyeglass place, and pick up my new lenses. I dropped my glasses about, I don't know, a few weeks ago, and I dropped them on the hardwood floor, and it made some really, really deep scratches. So they got the lenses in. I went in and they replaced both of them. They said they were automatically replaced in a pair, but if I needed to replace them, which was under warranty, but they said if I need to replace them again, I got to pay out of pocket. But it wouldn't be $129. I wouldn't have to replace $129 both lenses. I'd only have to replace one, which would be only $65. Anyways, I'm being really, really super careful with them so I don't drop them and break them or scratch them. Anyway, I'm going to probably bring this video to an end. I really didn't talk a lot about what the whole issue of mechanic shortage and car shortage. I know that like I said, when I first had to buy a car, way back when I first had my accident, and even before that, I was looking around and there really wasn't any cars to be had. They were just so few. I mean, they're cars, but there really aren't. There's not a big selection of cars, and of course now there's a shortage of mechanics. Now, I can't really offer any advice on what to do about a shortage of mechanics, other than, travel outside of the area if you're having an issue finding a mechanic, simply travel outside of the area where you live to find a mechanic. But for most people, that is very inconvenient. Most people have jobs, they have, they're tied to one spot, and they simply can't, if they live in, say, Minneapolis, Minnesota, they're not going to travel to St. Paul to, or I don't know how far that is, I can't remember, but the whole point is they're not likely to travel 20 miles away, or 30 or 40, to get their car worked on. That's just ridiculous. I know last year I did routinely take my car to a dealership that I really liked, and then of course we had the whole issue with it sitting in their shop for 8 months and the whole $900 bill and them not being able to fix it, and getting perturbed and telling me they don't like to work on older cars. And we kind of that kind of, for me, just kind of done it. But I was driving 30 miles to take my car in to be worked on, and someone would have to follow me to the dealership, which was 30 miles away. Well, most people aren't going to want to do that. I mean, are not going to be able to do it. It's going to be too inconvenient, especially if they have kids. They got to pick up their kids from school. They have jobs. They have, soccer practice, and just too many things, errands. I mean, it's just not going to be convenient. And so that I apologize for shaking the camera. So that is not, that's not a good option. That's just not an option for people that are tied to the same area. That's not a good option. Now, if you're on the road and you're traveling, road tripping, car camping, living in your car, living in your van, whatever, then, and you need to get your car worked on, and you need to get it worked on quickly. Well, my phone died. My phone was overheating earlier. That's why I came in. I was in the car. My phone started overheating, so I came in the house, and then I saw it drop down to 5%, but I thought I had more time, and apparently it just died on me. So there I was. Luckily, it usually doesn't save my videos, but when I went into this particular app, the Beautycam app, it said, do you want to continue editing the video that you're doing? And I said continue, and of course I couldn't add to it. I just saved it. But anyway, so I saved it. So anyway, that's pretty much it. My phone overheated and I had to stop. My phone died and I had to let it charge up a little bit and start again. So here I am, starting again. Anyway, what I was saying and what I was saying when the video ended was, if you're living in your car, car camping, road tripping, living in your car, traveling, whatever, living in your van, whatever, then you have the option, if the car is running, if it's running well enough to travel, 30 miles or 50 miles away, then you have the option of, if you're in a particular town and they just can't see, they can't take your car in very quickly. I know I've run into that issue where they will tell me that they have a very small, it's a small town or it's a small dealership, and they don't have, enough workers, they don't have enough employees to be able to, fit my car in. It's going to take like 2 weeks. And oftentimes, you know, and sometimes they will recommend me to bigger dealerships. And if I don't have a big issue with the car, and this has happened a few times when I didn't have a real big issue, I just have an engine light on or something, you know, and it wouldn't be running, you know, really bad or anything. It just, engine light would just be on, or if it was running, it wasn't running real bad. And so I could make it the 30 miles or the 50 miles or the 60 miles. It wasn't that big of a deal. There's been once or twice when I knew there was a suspension, maybe a suspension issue. I didn't know exactly what, but I did know something. Something wasn't maybe exactly right. Or brakes or something of that nature, you know, and I knew I needed to take it in, and I knew I could drive the 50, 60, 70 miles. It wasn't that, you know, bigger of a deal. And there have been times when the engine light was on and I knew I could drive 50, 60 miles because the car wasn't really acting up all that much. So, you know, I wouldn't, you know, worry about it all that much. But, you know, and I would just drive the car. And I shut the door behind me because I really I like my privacy to do my videos, and I don't want the TV. My ex-husband has the TV on, and the other room it goes right straight through. It's a closet, goes right straight through into the laundry room, and which used to be a bedroom. And he has a pet mouse, but it wasn't his mouse. Some other mouse got in the house, and the poor little thing was running around. He was sick. I know he was. You could tell he was sickly. Anyway, he went up under the dryer and he died. And we got to, and it smelled really bad. It started to smell kind of icky. It was smelling bad. So we moved the dryer, and there he was. Bugs and maggots were already on him. We got him out. Had to spray the laundry room down, leave it open, try to air it out. Anyway, I told him, you know, but he said, no, it's not his mouse. His mouse is fine, but some other, I guess, little field mouse from outside got in and died. I saw him, you know, we saw him run around, you know, can't catch him though, you know, and anyway, he died. So, anyhow, plus I want my privacy. When I'm doing my videos, I like my privacy. I don't like, you know, my ex-husband really, I mean, it's not that big of a deal to listen to me, but I just like my privacy when I'm doing my videos. Anyway, as I was saying, and just to conclude, if you're living in your car, your van, road tripping, traveling, something of that nature, and you need to take your car somewhere, they can't see your car in the town you're in, it's going to take too long, and you need to go have your car seen about, and your car or your van or whatever you're driving is running well enough to drive 60 miles away or 50 miles or whatever, however far it is, then by all means, that's definitely an option. If it's not running well enough, then you have an issue. Well, I wasn't paying attention to how much time was on this app, and it cut me off. Anyway, as I was saying, if you're living in your car, van, RV, SUV, you're road tripping, traveling, exploring, on the road, you know, whatever the case may be, and you have the option of driving 50 or 60 miles away, that's provided. Let's say you're in a town and they don't have the ability to see you right away. It's going to be 2-3 weeks, whatever. I've had that happen to me. And your car's running well enough to drive, or your vehicle, whatever, is running well enough to drive 50, 60 miles away, then by all means, that's definitely an option. Now, as I was saying, if it's not running well enough to drive 50, 60 miles away, then you have an issue. You're either going to have to stay in the town you're in, you're going to have to just figure out a way to stay in the town you're in and hope that it doesn't break down before they can see it, or I don't know. I really don't have any other, you know, I don't have any other solutions for that. This has happened to me, not to the extent where I had to stay in the same town. I've never had that issue, thankfully. I have been lucky enough to have smaller issues that could get corrected within one visit to the dealership or one visit to the shop, usually a dealership, because they can take my car in a little quicker. And as I said before, it's usually something minor. It's engine light or something, and it's not too big of a deal. And I get it worked on the road, and then I'm on my way. And I'm on my way within a few hours. Now, In one instance, I was in Georgia, LJ, Georgia, as a matter of fact. I started having issues with my car. I took it in. Turns out, eventually I had to have the PCM replaced. But initially, when I was in LJ, Georgia, they had to replace the struts. They had to replace the ball joints. There were some other suspension things at work they had to do as well. All totaled, it took 3 days to do the suspension work. Well, each time they worked it out, so they did it in piecework. They pieced it. I came in early the first time. They got me out within 2-3 hours. The second time I came in, it took a lot longer. It took about 5 or 6 hours before I was out. The second time they said I was gonna be there all day, 8 or 9 hours. I came in at 7:15. The tech got started on my car, and he wasn't done until about 3:30, quarter to 4, 4 o'clock. So and I knew, they told me, they said, you're gonna be here all day. So thankfully, they had really good coffee. They had excellent coffee, and I brought in some snacks, like peanut butter crackers and things to eat, a couple little snacks, and I think a few cookies, and I just munched, and I played on my phone, and by then my phone was starting to die, so I couldn't play on my phone, and I read their magazines, and then talked to some people, and then before I left, there was some ex-cop, retired cop, ex-cop, and they're regaling me and another customer with stories of his police days. Anyway, so it wasn't that bad, and I've done that before. I've broken it up where I would go one day, and then I might have to go the second day, and I might even have to go a third day. That's only happened a couple times, but as a general, and now one time when I was in Oklahoma, I ended up having to get a rental car, and they had my car for like 4 or 5 days. I had to rental for 4 or 5 days. So sometimes that's happened. Another occasion, they couldn't get finished with my car in one day, so I stayed at a motel. That's happened a couple of times. And it does happen. When you're on the road, there is the possibility, you're going to have to get your car worked on. You're going to have to maybe get a rental car. You may have to stay in a motel. Now, I think the first time I got a rental car, and that's because they offered it, but after that, the second or third time, I was like, why bother? Why bother with a rental car? It's almost as much as a motel room. I might as well just get the motel room, and it wasn't that big of a deal. That someone at the dealership took me to my motel and came back and got me the next day. It wasn't too big of a deal. And, it was probably a little inconvenient for them, but it wasn't that big of a deal. And not to mention I was paying out a good bit of money to these places. But as far as if you are having to drive your car back and forth, and I'll be back in just a second. Anyway, if you can get by with driving your car, just driving it the minimum amount until you get it into the dealership or the shop you've decided to take it to, then honestly, that's the option that you should take. And it's the option I've taken a couple of times when I needed to have my car seen about. If it wasn't going to be that long before they could get my car in to look at it, I just had my car looked at. I just stayed in the town I was in for the, week, few days, week, whatever. If it wasn't any more than a week, if it was like 2 weeks, then that was a push. Sometimes most of the time I would leave and find someone who could see it quicker. But if it was only going to be a few days or a week, I would just stay in the town and then just, have the car looked at, and just drive it the minimum amount possible. So that's my recommendation if you're on the road or something and you need to, you need to go that route. Anyway, I am going to, I think, bring this to a close. I've been on here long enough, and as usual, I end up going rambling. I end up, taking it in a different direction than I want it to go in, rambling, talking about everything else that's happened today, which for today was quite a bit. Anyway, I still need to touch base and do a short Twitter daily vlog, whatever. That obviously is not going to be as long as this one. It's because I touch base every single day usually. This one was much longer because I wanted to do the whole thing about the shortage of mechanics and the shortage of cars. Anyway, so that said, I'm going to bring this video to an end. It is already, the news just went off. It's 7 o'clock. I know Max's husband, he starts to get antsy. He wants to watch a movie. I kind of do too. I need to change clothes. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to get off of here, change clothes, go sit down, watch a movie. Oh, and I went to Publix and got myself one of those vegan Greek sandwiches with hummus and avocado. And the guy assured me, and I've heard it's really, really good. I hope it is. I like hummus, I like avocado. So anyway, so I hope it's really good. Anyway, I'm going to end the video for now. They told me that my car will be done by mid-tomorrow. Hopefully there's not going to be any issues as far as leaky lines. I hope. All I can do is they're going to do the maintenance. I'm going to get the car back, and hopefully I don't have any more issues. If I do, then I'll take the next step. But I probably, if I have to get a transmission diagnostic, it won't be at Ford. It will definitely be someplace else before I go to Ford. Anyway, that said, I'm going to get off of here now. I hope everyone has a good week, a good night, a good week. God bless. Peace.